Hey, pizza people, welcome back. We've got a pretty awesome deck for you today. We're going to be playing some Azorius Control, but it's not just any Azorius Control. This deck list was actually played by our great friend KillaDub, who is another streamer and a content creator overall. You can definitely find their information in the description below, so definitely check that out. But essentially, this version of the deck was best of one, and I actually kept the main deck intact, but I added a sideboard to the deck. And I wanted to see how good the deck was on the ladder. And I actually think the deck is really, really good, especially if you're like a blue-white mage. You're really going to enjoy this deck. So essentially, the deck ends up being a control deck with some counterspells, like our Make Disappear, like our Jwari Disruptions, our Absorbs, and our Rewinds. These can help us get rid of any problematic spells that our opponent is essentially putting on the stack and trying to cast. Uh, Essentially kind of just like negating that overall. We also have some card filtering and some card engine in Faithful Mending, which does gain us some life and kind of just filters a little bit through the deck. On top of that, having flashback can be great later if you end up drawing too many lands. The other card that gives us a lot of card advantage is going to be Memory Deluge. You get to look at the top X cards, your library where X is the amount of mana spent to cast it. So essentially, either at the front side of the 4 mana or the flashback side of the 7 mana, you're going to be able to dig a little bit deep or dig deeper and get the cards that you need to when you need them. For the additional removal, we have Settle the Wreckage, which does exiles all attacking creatures target player controls, and then that player searches their library for that many basic cards. So essentially, this card's kind of just like a blowout. Like if you're a lot of opponents forget that this card exists in the format, and they kind of just start running out all their creatures against you and attacking every turn, and then you can kind of just like blow out all their creatures and end the game essentially, sometimes with a nice little Settle the Wreckage. So our big win here in the deck, though, is our Magma Opus. Essentially, this is just like a big spell that you've seen in some of our other decks. One of our last gameplay videos actually was Jeskai Hinata, and Magma Opus was another big part of that. Well, here we're actually trying to just strictly put it into the graveyard, as we actually have no red mana to cast the card normally. We can also discard it, to make the treasure, and then use a treasure to cast another one if we need to, which can be a really big play as well. But essentially, you're trying to discard this to make some treasures to ramp into either Sublime Epiphany, which gives you a slew of abilities, whether it be countering a spell, an activated or triggered ability, or returning a non-land permanent to its owner's hand, creating a token that's a copy of another target creature control, and then drawing a card. And then the card that we essentially are going to be using with Sublime Epiphany is going to be Torrential Gearhulk. So Torrential Gearhulk is 6 mana for the 5/6. It has flash. When it comes in, you get to cast an instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost, and then exile that card. So essentially what you're really trying to do is you can end the game early by getting a couple Magma Opuses into the graveyard and making some treasures by discarding them, and then getting a Gearhulk down on like turn 5 pretty quickly, on turn 4, pretty quickly back into the Magma Opus to essentially lock out your opponent on their upkeep, and then start to swing the game back very quickly and end the game. Or we can also use the Sublime Epiphany to essentially stop any kind of problematic spell that our opponent may be trying to cast, or just outright bouncing a permanent, bouncing our own Gearhulk, or even copying the Gearhulk and then drawing a card, and then recopying the Sublime Epiphany that we just cast, copying the Gearhulk yet again, to then cast another card out of our graveyard, like the Magma Opus. So you can actually set up some really huge turns where you cast Sublime, copy your Gearhulk, recast the Sublime again, copying the Gearhulk yet again, and then casting the Opus, and you end up drawing 4 cards, 2 5/6s and a 4/4, tapping, dealing lots of damage, and then just kind of swinging the tempo quite a big ways. Or just end up, if you just have the Gearhulks with the Sublimes, you just end up with 3 or 4 5/6s, and then your opponent, most of the time can't really deal with that in this format. So that's usually enough to just end the game. And this card by itself, if you can get it off, especially on like a Planeswalker ability, maybe even like a Fable Passage, anything like that, kind of just blowing out your opponent and using almost all the abilities on the spell can definitely just end the game as well. Our mana base has a couple of interesting lands in it. We have the Ganja, which helps deal 4 damage to an attacking or blocking creature for discarding it for 3 mana. And we also have the Otawara. For 4 mana, we can bounce a permanent, essentially an artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. And both of these end up costing less for the legendary creatures that you control. We also have the Fable Passage to help us thin our deck a little bit and fix our mana sometimes. Now, the sideboard I actually ended up making myself. It's something that I'm still working on. Not really sold on a couple things, but still just trying stuff out. We have 2 Faithful Absences to kind of just help any Planeswalkers to get under the counter magic, or any creatures as well that may be too quick, or against like a Fight Rigging type deck, we can kind of just kill their one threat right away. We also have 4 Dovin's Vetoes for the control matchup, essentially just a negate that can't be countered. It's just very useful against other things as well. Kind of just like a catch-all card for certain matchups. We have 2 Narsets, which also help against control, essentially locking our opponents out from drawing any additional cards, and then helping us dig deeper into the deck. 1 of Wandering Emperor for any kind of like aggressive or mid-rangey aggressive strategy, gaining us some life and exiling cards, making tokens to block, and then essentially turning into the card that could end the game itself if we need to bring it in against a control deck or anything like that. We have 2 Farewells to exile any types of problematic permanents. Essentially, this card is great against any kind of cat oven deck, as you end up exiling their Trail of Crumbs, the oven, the cat, if they're tapped out, or even from the graveyard with the last part of this. So not really much of a way for the opponent to escape a card like this in that matchup, and against any type of like enchantment shenanigans, anything like that. I mean, this card's always going to be great. So pretty big blowout when you get it off. It definitely could just end the game. We have 2 Dream Trawlers for the mono red matchup. I actually think that the mono red matchup is something that we're going to have to sideboard for, as those were some of our losses. But at the end of the day, I think that Dream Trawler definitely helps in that matchup, and it can also help in other matchups where you know that your opponents can't deal with the flyer, and that lifelink's going to be huge. We have 2 March of the Otherworldly Light. We actually added these into the deck just to be able to get rid of some specific problematic permanents that may be lying around, like Fight Rigging, or any kind of like 1 or 2 mana artifact or enchantments. And you can even get rid of creatures as well, at instant speed, tokens, anything like that for a mana. So I think the card has some utility. I'm not entirely sold on 2 copies of it in the sideboard. It may end up being that maybe you just run 1 and then maybe run some more cards for red deck, anything like that that'll help you in that matchup, because I do believe that that's potentially the worst matchup for this deck. But you have no problem really against most of the mid-range decks, anything like that that has a slower game, because you're essentially just going to counter all their spells or settle the wreckage and then start casting your huge bombs and end the game really, really quickly. I know that I had a blast playing this deck. I definitely recommend it. We're going to go ahead and get into the gameplay. Jumping into some games here with Azorius Flash. See if we can rank up on the ladder. Gonna be on the draw here, but we have plenty of lands. We have spells that we can cast. I don't think that this hand is the best by any stretch, but I actually think it's pretty decent. And yeah, let's start with this tapped. We don't want to pay life for that later. It looks like we're up against the cat oven deck here. Make Disappear does feel a little bit weak, especially on the draw, considering they do have their engine, but our late game is actually really powerful. So I really like the fact that we have a 2 mana counterspell here, just in case our opponent did something. Do we want to get some redraws? We might. Let's use our mana efficiently here, get a couple redraws. Looks like they're just going to tap out for the food token here. Okay, Deadly Dispute, sure. And they're just going to draw a lot of cards, so for us tapping out might have not been the right call, but let's get rid of this Make Disappear and a Deluge. We drew another Deluge, which is fine. Play this as a white source. Pass the turn back to our opponent. Holding up this Absorb. Really hoping to get these Gearhulks copied here. Mayhem Devil, I think we just absorb that. Just going to stop our opponent from doing anything. We draw an island. I think that we have enough lands, so this Fable Passage is fine to play now. Pass the turn back to our opponent. Depending on what they cast, we'll absorb or we'll just memory deluge at end step. It looks like they could be going for the Corvold here. We'll just counterspell it. Go ahead and absorb. Go back up to 28. Let's thin our deck out, hoping to hit another counterspell. Yep, go get an island. We have enough white mana. Magma Opus is actually fantastic. Could also Mending. Yeah, I think this is fine. I think we'll just pass back to our opponent here. Potentially just putting the Opus into the graveyard. Fortunately, we do have to let that resolve. Right now, if this is all that they're doing, it's not anything crazy. Gonna pay 2 more life, which is kind of surprising, I think. And this is end steps. Let's go ahead and make a treasure token off the Magma Opus. And we'll just take our turn back here. Let's go play to Otawara. And we'll pass a turn back. We have Gearhulk plus Opus end step. Memory Deluge to draw some cards if we need them. And they're just going to get some cards into their hand. See what they get. Okay, Mayhem Devil, that's fine. We do have Gearhulk on Absorb if we need it. I don't think that we're going to do it, though. I think we'd rather just like shoot it down with the Opus. Yeah, just going to Goose. That's fine. We only have 4 cards left. Okay, going to pay some more life. 3 cards left. And let's see if they have some kind of instant speed removal spell for us here. They have lots of mana. I don't believe that they can sacrifice enough permanents to kill the Gearhulk, but I could be wrong. Let's go and cast this Magma Opus, dealing 3 damage to the Mayhem Devil and a damage to our opponent. Tapping down their land and the Goose. I think that that's okay. Mostly because we'll just have the Goose tap down as a blocker. And tapping down one of their lands makes them potentially have to use the treasure if they want to cast more spells or do more things this turn. We are going to get 4/4, which is great. Going to be able to attack for a lot of damage, considering the Goose is going to be tapped. Looks like our opponent's just floating the mana. So they may just use the mana to crack the food, and it looks like they are. Just to get a redraw or 2 using the other treasure token as well. We'd be okay with all of that. We're just going to be really ahead on board. And then we also have this Gearhulk to just counterspell anything. Sublime Epiphany would be the card that we would love to draw here. We even have 2 life to pay for this Hallowed Fountain. So right now I think the game is definitely in our favor. And I also feel like the food type decks kind of have a harder time dealing with bigger threats like these. It looks like they're pretty much are going to tap out here using that treasure token to dig deep into their deck to get some cards that they can play. We're completely okay with that. We're just going to smash in here for 9 damage, put our opponent down to 10. We'll pay the 2 life. That way we can Gearhulk plus make disappear if we need it. We also have Deluge and just a slew of all of these other cards. We have the Deluge in the graveyard we can even cast. Just going to pass a turn back to our opponent here. See what they have. They do have 6 cards in hand, 2 of them that we know about. Essentially, even if they have 2 removal spells, they can't really deal with everything that we have going on right now. Our graveyard isn't necessarily stacked either for the Gearhulk, but at the same time, just an absorb is great. We could also absorb and deluge. I just think that I almost want to like Gearhulk here. Just to get more threats onto the battlefield. This makes our opponent have to block. And we'll go ahead and absorb that. gain some life while we're at it as well. And I mean, our epiphanies are even better now. We got 2 Gearhulks. We can just bounce, copy, and do all kinds of shenanigans. Opponent is going to pay 2 life here. They do have a Corvold, but we have this make disappear. For the Corvold, they cannot pay for it. And we'll go ahead and move on to game 2 here. So we're playing against the Cat Oven deck. I believe that Farewell is really good against them. It is an expensive card, though, is the only problem. Wandering Emperor isn't bad. But once again, it's kind of like an expensive card. I think we just want the 2 Farewells. Sublime can be cut down. It's a 6-drop. Being on the draw means that most of our counterspells are also a little bit weaker, so we might be able to just shave on a rewind here, considering that's our most expensive counterspell. The question is do we want to bring in cards like Dream Trawler, knowing that our opponent really just can't deal with these cards? It's just like a one-hit kill. We really could almost like shave the combo down a little bit to the point where we just beat them down with our regular cards, kind of just like how we did. I kind of almost want to cut a Deluge and bring in just one of these. Probably cut a Gearhulk. Or I guess Epiphany. Yeah, cut Epiphany, keep the Gearhulk. Bring in the other Trawler. Just cut the whole combo out. It is kind of almost like an auto win though against them. We want the early interaction. Mending is okay. But it is an early play. Let's cut one of these. Could almost bring in the Doomscar. Is that better? No, I think I like this configuration. I think this is fine. Let's see if this is enough to win us this game. We're on the draw. It's a little bit slow. We're really hoping that our opponent's slow, but that's probably asking for too much. I'm on a mulligan. This is a lot better. I almost don't want to get rid of any of our cards. It's a little bit greedy to keep all these, potentially. Let's do this here and see where this takes us. Oh, they have a Thoughtseize here. Probably going to take the make disappear. And let's start off with the Fortress. We just want to draw some lands. Hit the cards that we need to. They have a cat and potentially a tap land. Nope. But no other play, which is kind of interesting here. So we have both these Magma Opuses. They can potentially ramp us to a Gearhulk early. We'll see if we can draw said Gearhulk here. Go ahead and make a treasure and response to this. Take the 1 damage, go down to 18. Another Fable Passage, so we'll definitely crack this Fable Passage now, considering that we're getting a little bit flooded out. And they do have a Fable. But we'll go ahead and make another treasure here. And get this island. And we'll go ahead and take a damage here. I actually do think that I just want to do this. Let's take a look. We probably want to get rid of the grave. We don't want to get rid of our graveyards. So yeah, let's just do all the other ones. Let's just exile everything but graveyards, considering we want to hit our Gearhulk. And we'll pass the turn back. So opponent just has 3 mana. If they have like a Mayhem Devil, that's fine. They actually just don't even have anything. I think we might want to... No, let's do this. Let's do this. I think it's really tough, honestly, whether or not we want to keep this Fable Passage. Just because it gives us an additional card to discard. That's fine. I don't think we're worried about the goose. See if they have a follow-up play here. They have a Thoughtseize. Doesn't really do much, I don't think. Think I'm okay just letting this happen. We can just cast the Faithful Mending out of the graveyard. We could have redrawn, but let's say we do draw into something that we want. I don't think it's worth discarding there. Let's go ahead and crack this. Just get a shuffle in. See if we could potentially draw something decent. Or maybe even something we can discard to the Mending. Deluge is great. It's going to help us dig a little bit deeper into the deck. We'll go ahead and pass the turn back to our opponent here. Still being at 17 is actually really good as well, considering that it's just such a high life total. Okay, Corvold's going to be a bit of a problem, but let's go ahead and Deluge in response. Fantastic. We'll go grab a Settle the Wreckage. And the Saganjo is an untapped land. Excuse me, couldn't get it out there. To go ahead and sacrifice a card, make this a little bit bigger. We just have 2 Settle the Wreckages. I think we still just don't want to miss land drops here. Pass the turn back. We can Mending if we really need to. Okay, they get an Epicure down. And they'll go ahead and get a blood token off of this Epicure. 3 cards left, 2 mana. They're going to go ahead and cycle just to draw some lands, it looks like. Yep, get the cat into the graveyard. We're okay with all of this. Even if we ramp them a tiny bit, I think it's okay, honestly. I'm pretty sure they're just going to attack with the Corvold. I'm okay using the Settle here. Let's see if they sacrifice another card. That's fine. They do get to draw, but let's just get rid of this Corvold. It's a problem. I almost feel like I want to dig for some Gearhulks. We can just discard the Settle the Wreckage and cast it later. I'm debating whether or not that's good. Maybe we wait one more turn. Okay, we do hit a land, so now can actually pitch the land if we need to and still Settle the Wreckage, or we can Deluge. Deluge digs us 7 deep. Yeah, let's do the Deluge. Even though they have a lot of cards, they can't cast another Corvold unless they have a land, I guess, which is realistic, but right now we know that they've been stunted on mana for a little bit, so we're kind of hoping to pay off on that. Considering we're at 16, we're just not really in any danger, and opponent's just going to cast this Gildagoose. Completely okay with that. And looks like they are just going to pass it back. So yeah, we'll go ahead and Deluge. Hitting potentially like a Trawler or a Gearhulk. We actually hit neither. But having a backup Settle the Wreckage is actually pretty decent. I think I'll just take the 2 spells. Now we have a land we can discard to the Faithful Mending. So we'll go ahead and pass it back to our opponent here. We have an Absorb for anything that they play. They do still have 4 cards in hand, which is a bit scary. They could go for a Coco here. If so, I mean, we just have a Settle the Wreckage when they go to attack, so it's not really like a big deal. Opponent up to 5 cards. Let's see if they hit a land drop. They have a Trail of Crumbs. I think we just counterspell that. I don't want to see that card. It's not a card we want to see here. Especially as the game progresses later. They have 2 Gilded Gooses. So they're just making tons of food and going to be able to potentially draw a lot more cards, and we want to stop that from happening. Right now, that's all that they have, so we'll go ahead and Faithful Mending here, see if we can top deck something decent. 2 lands, we can just get rid of these. We have Castle Vantress now, which helps us scry. Also having this additional Absorb that we top decked is great. Pass the turn back to our opponent. So we can still Absorb and Castle Vantress on end step. Let's see if our opponent tries to slam a Corvold, anything like that. We'll be able to counterspell it. They still have a lot of cards in hand. They have more cards than we do, so we're mostly hoping to rely on these Settle the Wreckages to help us a bit whenever they go to attacks. Kind of just a 1 card to get them back 2 or 3 for 1. Opponent is looking into our graveyard. Let's see. You know, honestly, I don't know if we want this. I think we'll just go ahead and counter that. It's not like a crazy scary card, but if they're also going to take their turn to do that, not really too worried about it. We'll go ahead and Vantress here, potentially hitting a Gearhulk or a Trawler, which is what we really want, either one. We have a Farewell. It's really hard to say no to Farewell, but we already have 2 Settle the Wreckages. So I actually think, as weird as that seems, I actually think it's okay. All right, unfortunately, still not hitting the cards that we need. We'll go ahead and pass the turn back, holding this Hallowed Fountain, cycling it away with the Faithful Mending. Okay, they do have a Deadly Dispute. A bit annoying, but in all honesty, not really anything we can do about it. Opponent's going to pay life again here. Get a Graveyard Trespasser. Let's go ahead and Faithful Mending in response. That way we're able to use it. We hit both of the cards that we want. So we'll just discard these. And that'll resolve. That's okay. They're going to deal us... Do we have any creatures in the graveyard? They do, but all they have is a cat. Oh, they have Epicure. They could get rid of their own Epicure to deal us 1 damage. Which is okay. Yep, they're just going to get rid of Settle instead. That's fine. We have another Settle in the graveyard. And we have a Gearhulk in hand. I don't think we want to play this Trawler yet. We just want to pass the turn back. Use this Gearhulk. See if they cast something pre-combat. They might go for a Corvold. We just rewind. Gearhulk, shoot this down, discarding the other Settle the Wreckage. We're kind of just like in prime position here. Yep, just going to rewind that. Nope, no response. Untap all of our lands. See if they go to attacks. We'll just Gearhulk. Good Magma Opus. They are going to pay more life, which we do like to see here. So I'm wondering what they're going to cast. Vraska. Quite an interesting card, I would say. Probably going to discard both of our Opuses. I think that's fine. I just want them to attack into this Gearhulk. And they're going to get rid of one of their geese. Let's let them attack, target the cards. No attacks, so yeah, we're just going to slam down Gearhulk. Go ahead, Magma Opus here. Do we just want to deal 4 damage to our opponent? Maybe 2 damage here. I think that's fine. We don't really need to tap anything down. We can just tap some cards down. If we target the Glutton, I don't really want to discard a card right now for that. Doesn't seem the most efficient. We just hit another Trawler. That's going to flip back. They are almost dead. Yeah, let's just attack our opponent here. Not really too worried about the Vraska. Looks like they're just going to chump block. Completely okay with that. 4, 5. Just going to pass the turn back to our opponent. No reason not to. They can blow up our Elemental. That's fine. Yep. We could have cast a Dream Trawler, but I don't like not having mana open, honestly. And yeah, I think I'm okay just doing this. Don't really want our opponent to see our hand. They have 3 cards left. I mean, there's no reason to let that resolve, really. And we pretty much had a really smooth match there against the Cat Oven deck where they can't really do too much. All we're really doing is just waiting for them to do some things. We just counter their spells, and then our end game is just so massive that it's a lot harder for them to deal with it. We just really have to counter a few key spells like a Corvold or a Trail of Crumbs to essentially cut off their card advantages. So great match there, and we'll see you for the next one. Let's control our opponents here with this Azorius Flash deck. Making some copies of Gearhulks, countering some spells. Feels pretty good. Let's see what we're up against in this wide open Explorer format, especially considering there was a recent banning, expressive iteration, so gonna be a lot more variety of decks, hopefully. We're on the draw. I think that this is okay. Normally, I would say that I would like to mulligan this hand. Ooh, we're up against red, so slightly punished here for keeping a bit more of a loose hand, in all honesty. Especially if they play something like a Robber the Rich now. Which they might. We do have an Absorb, though, but it's not going to come down for a couple turns. Okay, they just have a Soul Scar Mage. So it looks like we're playing against a burn iteration of this deck. So we want to go ahead and get our Otawara down. Pass the turn back. We are going to take a bit of damage here. We do have this settle for next turn, so... Ooh, Chandra. Quite a bit annoying, but still manageable. So we are going to take some damage. We'll see if our opponent has another spell for us here, and they do. They do have a Wizard's Lightning, so... Opponent's going off quite a bit here. We're going to go down to 8. Definitely not where you want to be already. But we do have this... Settle the Wreckage to potentially help us against them. They only have one card left. The Chandra is obviously the most problematic card, but a card that we can deal with nonetheless. And let's go ahead and just play the Saganjo down. Pass the turn back, holding the Settle the Wreckage. Okay, they're going to exile their top card, so opponent looking for some gas. They're going to go to attacks here. We'll just settle. They might know that we just have it. Seems kind of obvious. Being at 8 life is obviously problematic. Absorb might help. It was great that they didn't use their Chandra to deal us some damage. What were we looking for here? So we're just hoping to counter some spells. Gain ourselves some life here. We'll see what happens. We're at 8. Den of the Bugbear would pretty much just kill us here. We'll see if our opponent goes for that. They might go for the light up the stage. Yeah, we'll take the 2 damage. Not sure what we can deluge for. Yeah, just going to go ahead and absorb here. Gain some life. Going to go up to 9. Do have a land for the Gearhulk here, which is, well, getting closer to the Gearhulk, excuse me. Either way. Alright, got to pass the turn back. We're almost dead to our opponent here. Looks like they're going to crack the Ramanap Ruins. Yep. Go down to 7. The creature land is lethal. We'll see if they go for it. Going for the Chandra here. They have a Wizard's Lightning. We'll see if they're tempted to play it. They're going to hardcast Light Up the Stage. I think I'm okay with just counterspelling this, and then we just have Gearhulk next turn to keep our life total going. Yeah, we'll go to 10. We're going to take a lot of damage now. Yep. Going to go down quite a lot. Are we just dead here? They have a Stomp, so we'll go down. Yep, we are actually dead there. Red deck does give this deck quite a bit of trouble, so it is definitely expected. I think we just want our board wipes against them, maybe like a couple pieces of early interaction. Our counterspells are kind of just so-so. Mending does gain us some life. Dovin's Veto might be okay as like a 2 of. The Rewind's a little bit expensive. Sublime Epiphany is not what we want to be doing. We'll bring in the Dream Trawlers. Wandering Emperor is great because it gains life. Question is do we want to bring in another Dovin's Veto or the Fateful Absence? I think I might just want the Fateful Absence. I just feel like everything else is okay. We don't really need Sublime. It's kind of just so-so. And the Make Disappear is also not as efficient, considering that a lot of their cards are like cheaper. So if we're like holding that on turn 3 and then they just play like a 1-drop, it's, you know, not what we want to be doing. See if we can get a good opening hand here, potentially stabilize the game, and then close it out with our Dream Trawler or the Gearhulk. I actually think this hand's great. We have lands, we have removal spells, we're able to interact early with the Fateful Absence. So they could still have a 1-drop here, and they do, but we have cards that deal with their creatures now. We'll see what they do. I mean, we could still just hold up and wait for them to flood the board a little bit more, considering we have X for 1 here. And they have a light up the stage. They do hit a mana here, plus they're just going to Wizard's Lightning. We could kill that, but they could Lightning us in response. Trawler is the draw. If we can get the Dream Trawler, we're just going to swing the game. And nothing we can do about this. Mainly hoping that our... Let's actually just kill this, so that way they have to... If they want to light up the stage, they have to hard cast it. And that's all that they potentially have. Nope, Vishnu Pyromancer. We'll go down to 14. And these Settle the Wreckages are looking okay, but not the best. Still just going to pass the turn back to our opponent here. As awkward as it is, we may have to save ourselves. I'd rather like do this in case they're trying to light up the stage. It seems desperate, but I think we need to do it sometimes against the red deck just because we have to keep up with what they're doing. Obviously, given the mana is not the best thing that we want to do either, but... Okay, they just have another Pyromancer. So we saved ourselves a little bit of damage. If they play another creature here, we just have another Settle. Dovin's Veto is actually pretty decent. They can counter a problematic spell. They're going to crack the Clue. Really hoping that they dent the Bugbear here so we can just settle into the Trawler. If not, we have a Veto to counterspell something that they tap out for potentially. And they're going to go ahead and Rumble here with the Den. We're completely okay with that. Let's let our opponent attack. Going to make a token, let that resolve, and we'll go ahead and pop off this Settle the Wreckage. Exiling all of our opponent's creatures, and then we'll have this Dream Trawler on the following turn to potentially help close out the game. Okay, they get their lands into play tapped. Glacial Fortress is great because now we can actually discard this pathway to protect the Trawler. And we'll pass back to our opponent here. Okay, play with fire. They've got some burn. I mean, they have 4 cards left. Let's see what they do with the card. They do keep it on top, so it's not a good sign. Definitely not a good sign here. Being at 10 is pretty low. They do have access to lots of mana. We'll take 2 damage here. Go down to 8. They have a Skewer the Critics. They may burn us out here. We're at 5. Land drop as well. 3 cards left. Skewer the Critic puts us at 2. And looks like opponent does have the final burn spell here, unfortunately. So even though we drew the card that we needed, the red deck was actually able to burn us out. So we did lose this match, but we'll see how we do in the next one. Getting into some more games here with Azorius Flash. See if we can get some good matchups here. Have played against red a couple times. Definitely not something that we want to see. Being on the draw does smooth out this mulligan here. Unfortunately, not having a second or third land is not where you want to be with this deck, but we'll go ahead and get rid of this Make Disappear. And we have the Magma Opus to ramp us a little bit. Opponent may have a Thoughtseize. Looks like we're playing against a Cat Oven deck here again. And let's see what they do. So they do have the oven set up here. I don't have any other plays right now. We'll play this island in case we want to discard these Magma Opuses. Really depends on what our opponent does. They're going to go ahead and drain us for a point of damage here. And here comes the cat back. Nope, not going to get it back yet. Kind of a bit surprised about that, honestly. Okay, they just have another cat, sure. I think we're just going to make a treasure here, get these magma opuses into the graveyard, potentially wrapping into one of our 6 drops if we draw it. And we do have a Gearhulk, so we can get down the Gearhulk in one of these opuses really, really quickly, so definitely think that's what we're going to do. Let's play this as a blue source, and we'll pass it back to our opponent here. So it almost doesn't matter what they do. I think that we just want to get these opuses down into the graveyard. Obviously, them doing the cat oven is going to be a little bit annoying, but we do have ways of going over the top of this. And they're going to go sack it again. Yep. And we'll go back to end step here. And they're probably just going to bring it back. They have 5 cards left. Okay, looks like they're just going to come in with the cat. We're completely okay with that. Let's go ahead and discard this Magma Opus. And if they get another oven, it's going to be a bit annoying, but right now we're actually doing okay. I think I just want to fetch now. Not going to take any chances in case our opponent has like a response or something like that later. Get this plains down. And we'll go pass the turn back to them. And they have a deadly dispute. I kind of want to absorb that. As weird as it is. I actually think it's okay. And we can use one of the treasures with this make disappear. So that way we're not using all of the mana. And we still have a land for the Gearhulk on the following turn. Yeah, we'll go ahead and counterspell this. Using one of the treasures. And all they really have is a food token and the Witch's Oven. And we're going to go to end step here. Wow, we drew another land. I think I would rather thin my deck out. Let's just do it now. Getting one of our islands. And we'll pass the turn back to our opponent. Now we just have Magma Opus potentially. They could just get the cat back onto the battlefield. We're okay with all these things. Not really anything that's like too threatening to us. We gained a decent amount of life with the absorb. And we're kind of just like in an okay state right now. This Gearhulk's going to help us do quite a lot, especially with the Opus. We're going to have 6 mana either way next turn if we draw another Gearhulk or a Sublime Epiphany. Definitely the card that we want to see here. Combo off a little bit. Looks like our opponent is just going to pass a turn back. Let's go cast this Gearhulk. See if we're able to flash back one of these Magma Opuses. And our opponent's actually just going to pack it up. I think that that's enough for them on that level. Let's bring in these Farewells. 1 Dream Trawler I think is fine. We can cut 2 Epiphanies. A Deluge. One of these make disappears, I believe. Not sure if that's correct, or do we want to keep those in? Let's take a look at our sideboard here. Maybe we keep these in to just counter all their spells. This looks pretty fine. I mean, we have tons of ways to win. I don't really think that we have to over sideboard. I don't really think we have to add anything else in. I mean, Epiphany's great, but don't believe that this is a matchup that we want to see it in. There's an argument for Wandering Emperor just because it actually exiles their creatures as well. But I don't really think it's that necessary. And on the draw, I think we'll mulligan. And we can keep this. It's all still a bit awkward. But we have some of the combo. Opponents maybe got a Thoughtseize for us. Cat? Okay. We're going to get beat down a little bit here then. We have another rewind. Really, really slow, but I don't want to go down to 5. Could have been an argument to keep the first hand, but I don't know. I'd rather mulligan to try to find a hand that's a lot more suitable. Did draw a 4th land, so we have the rewind and the Subtle Wreckage active whenever we get to it here. Opponent might just have a Devil, which would be a bit annoying, but the Subtle Wreckage helps us exile all their cards. And they just have a Fable, which pretty scary. Definitely not something that we want to see. Fortunately, all we have are 4-drops right now, so we're definitely at the mercy of our opponent. Even if we get to our 6th land, everything isn't guaranteed. Would like to see maybe like a Faithful Many to discard the Epiphany. But that Fable is going to flip next turn. That's quite a bit scary. Let's see if our opponent commits more to the board. Okay, they have another Fable. So Settle's going to be fine. And the rewind might end up being helpful as well if they commit more things to the battlefield. But right now we're a little bit behind. Okay, they're going to go ahead and get that back to the battlefield. Potentially discarding some cards here. Looks like they just discarded a land, so they might have another card that they want to keep. Fortunately, they do get some treasure tokens. Not what we want to see. We're also going to give them more mana here. So they're going to be able to cast a lot of their spells and potentially dig deeper into the deck, but... Okay, they just have Deadly Dispute for the cat. So they can bring that back later. We'll get rid of both of the tokens, save ourselves a little bit of life and some decent targets for the reflection. Obviously, we're just looking to hit 2 more lands to hit our big bomb spells here. If not, we're definitely in a bit of trouble. 3 cards left from our opponent. Let's see what they end up playing. They have another Trail of Crumbs, which is a problematic card. I mean, they could dig deep and deep into their deck, so... not hitting a 4th land, definitely a huge problem there. Gonna have to pass back to our opponent. Fortunately, anytime you're mana screwed, it does give you a harder time to win the game. And we'll go ahead and let those spells resolve. They're going to go ahead, get some cards. We do get to rewind one of their spells if they play it, so I guess that's okay. Could also make a lot of Kiki-Jiki tokens here. We're definitely in a tough spot. Our opponent could combo us back. I think we just want to, as weird as it is, I think we want to counter this, because if we expect the game to go longer, then we don't want our opponent to do this. So, let's untap all of our lands here. Let them go to attacks. Let's see if they attack with the Kiki. They're not going to attack with anything because they know better now. Absorb. Not really the card we want to see. We just want to hit some lands. Not spells. Kind of a bit unfortunate here in game 2, but having this settle is going to be nice. So it does look like they're just going to make a lot of Kiki-Jiki tokens. And then attack with everything but the reflection, and then they're just going to keep doing this every turn, and it's going to be hard for us to deal with it. So they're going to go ahead and make another token here. Yeah, they can choose to not attack with the real creatures, so... We have one more turn where we have a chance. But then we're in the position where we need to top deck a land. But even then, it's not the guarantee. Can't really go down to 3 because the cat pretty much kills us. I think I'm just going to concede this game and move on to game 3 just to see if we can, you know, take that, considering we're not hitting our 6th land drop. Let's cut all the Epiphanies. I don't think that we really need them. Is Doomscar a card we could bring in potentially? Or even the veto. Veto could end up being just a little bit too late. Could bring in a Fateful Absence. But it does not destroy artifacts or anything like that. We definitely want another controlling card here. I think I'll bring in the board wipe just in case. If they get the Fabled start again, then we want to be able to deal with it. Same thing with the Mayhem Devils, the Corvolds, anything like that. This hand's a little bit risky, but I think it's okay considering that we do have the third land in the Jawari Disruption. So I actually think we're going to start off with Jawari Disruption first into Plains and potentially paying some life for this Hallowed Fountain. There could be an argument to start off with this, but I'd rather get the tap land out of the way first no matter what. We could even turn 2, pay 2 life, and hold up a slew of spells and abilities. Maybe make a treasure at end step. And we'll go and pay the life considering that we drew a Gearhulk here, so we'll go pass the turn back to our opponent. Looks like they're having a little bit of a slow start. If they go for like a Trail of Crumbs, we're definitely counterspelling that. They just have a tap land, so we're actually in a good spot now. We're just able to make a treasure. The turn comes back to us here. We'll go ahead and play our Plains, pass the turn back. Right now we're just in a really good spot. We have Counterspell, redraws, and we have our late game engine here with their Gearhulk. They're going to go for the Mayhem Devil. I think we're just going to counterspell that. Stop them from having anything on the battlefield. We could Mending, but I don't want to use this treasure. I'd rather wait. Drawing that Otawara was really nice. I think we'll go ahead and play this as a blue source. Having a bit of a hard time deciding here. I think we'll just do white. Pass the turn back to our opponent. Do the Deluge at end step. They have 6 cards left. They're just passing the turn back to us here. We'll Deluge. Now we have Gearhulk next turn. Let's get the Opus and the Absorb into our hand. And what we're doing is just too powerful. Our opponent just kept a really slow hand. And at the end of the day, slow hands aren't going to do anything against control. So we took the match down, and we'll see you for the next one. I just really enjoy playing me some Sublime Gearhulk. Get the control with the combo. Always a bit fun. All right. We're on the draw. A little bit unfortunate, but just means we'll have access to more cards. I actually think we can keep this. A little bit of a weak hand considering we have 4 lands to start, but we don't want to miss any land drops in control, and we have answers if our opponent ends up being more on the aggressive side. They do have Sliver Sleeves, so we'll see what they're up to here. It could be anything, really. Going to be a bit interesting. Okay, comes in play tapped. We'll go ahead and Hallow Fountain tapped, pass the turn back to our opponent. Having this Gearhulk is nice, just because we will have some late game. Looks like they just have nothing yet, so we'll go ahead and pass it back. If they go for the Lovestruck Beast, we can just make it disappear. Or we can even hold up the Settle the Wreckage eventually, but I think I'd rather save myself 5 life rather than take the hit. Just keep up with the tempo as well. Ooh, Magma Opus is fantastic as well, actually. We're able to make a treasure, ramp into this Gearhulk, maybe hitting this counterspell again, or even a more powerful spell. I guess we're just going to hit the Opus, so I always forget, in all honesty, just because I think I overthink the ramping a little bit. I'm just so excited about getting my cards down so fast. Ooh. That is definitely a card. Yup, that is definitely a card. And a token. Okay, so we're playing against Fight Rigging. You love to see it. Another Opus. Okay. Well, we have a Settle the Wreckage, so that's going to help. This Opus is definitely going to get us to the Gearhulk either way a turn sooner. Looks like they're just going to go for the attack here. I think I'm just going to settle. There's no real reason not to. And we can just decline on the shakedown heavy, not give them a card. You may have them... Nope, decline, not give you a card. They have 3 cards left. Left struck. Probably can't attack. That's not really that scary, in all honesty. We'll go ahead and just play this. We already have an Opus in the graveyard. And... do we want to upkeep Gearhulk is the question. I don't think so. I think we can wait like a little bit to see what they play. Maybe tap down their other creatures. Oh, Great Henge is quite scary. They do have the mana to pay for it. No absorb in the graveyard. Either way, they would have been able to play it too, and if we tap down 2 of their lands. So not necessarily too exciting. We're still going to Gearhulk into Opus, tapping their permanents down, dealing our opponent direct damage, and then coming for a big swing, holding up the Settle the Wreckage for anything that they might do. And they're going to go ahead and get Lovestruck Beast onto the battlefield. Yep, it's going to go ahead and resolve. They do get a redraw, so Henge is obviously a card that is a problem, but we're going to try to close out the game a lot sooner than our opponent can get the card engine going. We'll see how we do here. They did get a redraw. Really looking for like an epiphany here. 1 card left. Let's go ahead and Gearhulk. Getting back this Magma Opus. Dealing our opponent 4 damage. Tapping their creatures down. Drawing a couple cards in the process as well. Faithful Mending is going to be nice. They're at 16. We drew another Gearhulk. Everything's coming up the way that we want it to. Let's thin the deck out by getting another island. Would rather do that than just playing the pathway. And we can put the Opus into the graveyard and Settle the Wreckage, so we're just going to come in for 9 here. And we'll go pass the turn back. And then on our main phase, we're just going to do this Opus whenever it gets back, and then potentially just come in for the victory here. So they're going to get a Routing Regisaur. We're completely okay with that. Obviously, opponent drawing cards isn't good, but still trying to close the game out before any of this becomes an issue. And let's see here. What can we do? Yep, gonna have to let them... It's just the 6/6. Yep. Kinda have to let them attack here. Gonna draw a card. A bit scary, but we definitely have to do it. Let's see. Yeah, still gonna settle here. Get rid of their card. And then potentially hope to just come in for the win with the Gearhulk the next turn. They do have the potential to chain some cards out, which would be problematic, but gonna try to just keep pushing through the damage here. We also have a backup set. Well, we could potentially backup Settle the Wreckage again with the Gearhulk if need be. Okay, they're gonna make 6 mana. They're gonna cast a Regisaur. Gonna draw some more cards. So we are fighting against the Henge now. The game is gonna be a little bit more difficult. Hoping to draw Sublime Epiphany just because it'll help us just copy a ton of cards. Okay, make disappear. Thinking about what our options are. Fortunately, the Gearhulk is not going to have haste. Can also Faithful Mending to see if we draw into something good. If we tap both of these down, we still can't come in, though, is the problem. So I'm trying to think what our best solution is here. Do we just try to mending into Sublime Epiphany? We might want to do that. Let me see, 1, 2, and then we don't have enough unless we play the land. Kind of have to play the land. Yeah, I think we're just going to have to pass back and try to get there now. They do have to discard cards, which is great. So they're going to get rid of most of the cards they have. Looks like they just had another Henge and a land, so let's hope they don't draw a creature. They are adding 2 mana here, and it is a shakedown heavy. We unfortunately cannot counterspell that. So let's go ahead. Yep, gotta let this resolve, unfortunately. Still have a lot of things that we can do, though, here. Let's go ahead and let our opponent attack. Let's see what they end up attacking with. Okay, not going to attack. Let's go ahead and get the Gearhulk down. Casting the Magma Opus. Just going to deal our opponent straight 4 damage. Tapping down both of these 8/7s. And we drew another Gearhulk here, which is great. And let's see. Do we want to just Faithful Mending? I actually think that we do just want a Faithful Mending here. Okay, Settle the Wreckage is great. Exactly what we want to see. Do we just want to get rid of the land? I think that we do. I don't think we need that counterspell anymore. I like all the other cards that we have, though. So, and let's see. They're at 7. Do we just have this here? I feel like we kind of do, right? Are we trying to dig? Is there even anything we're trying to dig for right now? They have a Lair of the Hydra. So the Lair of the Hydra can block. That is a problem. All right. Oh, we're going to have to use our time here, which I don't want to do, but... if we come in, let's just Deluge, main phase, see what we hit. We'll go ahead and grab the Otawara and the Make Disappear. I think we're just going to have to pass a turn back, unfortunately. We're really in an awkward spot, but we do have this Settle the Wreckage to help us. So opponent is tapping quite a bit of mana. They just have a Gilded Goose. Obviously, the Goose is a bit annoying just because... Okay, gives them more blockers. Let's see if they attack. We just have this Settle here. And they're just getting some more redraws with the Henge, so I think we're kind of just in some really bad spot here. And, yep, that's just going to have to resolve. So our opponent does have quite a lot of cards on the battlefield. It really just feels like the game is kind of a little bit more unwinnable now. Let's see if they attack. We just have to Settle the Wreckage. I think we're going to have to take the 7 here. We do have Faithful Mending to potentially redraw some cards that we need. And it just looks like they're just going to go ahead and attack with those, and we'll just settle them. Maybe get some more lands out of their deck, which is fine. I mean, Obviously, it's good for them, but at the same time, we're just not taking all that damage. And we'll go decline here. And let's see, they have one card left. So that's good. We have Gearhulk. They still have the Lair of the Hydra. We have Otawara to maybe bounce something to settle the wreckage, kill some things. Probably just going to Deluge. It's looking like. Pass the turn back. We can make disappear for 4 mana, but it's not really that impressive. I think we just want to Deluge. Opponent's just going to gain some life. Going to go back up to 12. Definitely a grindy game here. Still looking for some Sublime Epiphanies or maybe even some more Magma Opuses. Could bounce the Henge, but opponent's just going to recast it. I mean, it just ties up their mana, but it's not anything crazy. If they attack with just the Shakedown Heavy, we can take that damage. And they're going to go ahead and cast Turn Timber. They can still pay for the counterspell if we were to do it. Still have to let that resolve. Still going to Deluge here. Hoping to hit some cards that we want. Oh, that is not what we want to see, though. It's going to destroy one of our Gearhulks. And make a 4/4 token. At least we still have a backup Gearhulk for the other Settle the Wreckage in the graveyard. I actually, as weird as it is, I think I'm just going to bounce this. Yeah, I don't really see anything wrong with that. I think we're just going to bounce it back to our hand here. And then we just have 2 Gearhulks. And that can resolve. Do we just Mending now? We might want to. Yeah, we're just going to take that. Yep. Or excuse me. Sorry, I meant to hit decline there. Do apologize about that. Don't want to give them more cards because they'll just have more stuff on the battlefield. But it's okay. Things happen sometimes. And gonna go to crack here. Getting a plains. Do we want a Mending just because we have the mana for it? Let's do it. I mean, most of the time we're just going to want to discard the cards anyways to flash them back with the Gearhulk. Wow, that's really good. Yeah, that's just really good. I think we just discard both of these. We need all those cards that we can get. So we'll go to our turn here. Play this blue source, pass the turn back to our opponent. Really was hoping for a Magma Opus, I guess, in the graveyard, but having to settle the wreckage is nice. Yep, they're going to make a food token, so they're going to go back up to 20 pretty much. This game is quite grindy. Really hoping to Gearhulk them out, though. They do have quite a lot of cards left. We're going to be able to counterspell whatever they play now, which is nice. Llanowar Elves. Obviously annoying, but can't. Don't want to counter that. They have other cards they're going to play. With 4 cards left in hand. Gilded Goose does redraw them. We're actually close on cards, both of us are, so game is falling out of reach. They have another creature land. Definitely is quite the card. I'm gonna take it. We'll take the damage. Let's... Just don't want to bounce most of their stuff. Because they're just going to redraw. Bouncing our Gearhulk isn't even really that impressive. Oh, we could just try to go for the win. They still have Lair of the Hydra. It's getting really difficult here to navigate through the game too, considering we just have so many options, so many different things going on. I think we have to return. Could return the Henge. Let's return the Shakedown Heavy. Copy the Gearhulk. Draw a card. See if we can draw something we can cast too. That would actually be really, really good. Okay, we'll draw land. Recast the Sublime Epiphany. We'll go ahead. Return. It's just getting really difficult. Do we just bounce the Henge? It's just really awkward. I just want to bounce more of all their blockers, but then they also just have tons of mana to recast all their cards. Yeah, I think we just have to go for it next turn. That's really where we're at. Really hoping to hit like an Opus. Deluge. Fortunately is not going to be able to do that. Okay, absorb, can counter a spell. So we can recounter some of their creatures. Still not really that impressive. I'm just going to come in for damage. We have settle, so if they end up doing something weird, we don't really care about that. I think our main problem is right now is that we just don't have any good spells in the graveyard to flash back. We have less cards now than our opponent as well, a little bit problematic. Alright, I'm just going to activate the Hydra, make it a 5/5. Opponent's going to make some blocks here. Probably just take this 14. Oh, it looks like they're actually just going to block with most of their cards, which is somewhat surprising, I think. But I guess they're just hoping to not get blown out by us tapping some of their cards down or doing what we just did again. Alright, we'll put them down to 10. They do have 2 food tokens, which is quite a bit problematic. And let's see here. What do we want to do? Let's see here. I don't know if we just want to go to end step. It's just a little bit annoying. Maybe we just do though. Let's just put all the lands down that we can. Let's pass the turn back to them. They're going to try to cast Fight Rigging. We'll go ahead and counter that. And let's see what they end up having. So they do have the heavy. I think I'm okay just counterspelling this, as weird as it is. Do we just want to hold up the settle? We just don't want them to draw any more cards either. I think I'm okay just counterspelling it and gaining some more life. We can take another Titan hit. Let's absorb it. And our opponent's gonna, recast the Lovestruck Beast here. That is gonna draw them a card, but they're almost tapped out, which we do love to see here. They're at 12. Really want to hit one of our bomb cards here to be able to get it back from the graveyard with this Gearhulk. Epiphany would be the card that we would love to see here. Make disappear, not what we want to be seeing. Unfortunately, our opponent's still just digging deeper into their deck. Oh, this Gearhulk. We probably end up deluging now, just to be able to hit the cards that we want to hit. I think that's probably correct. And yep, gonna go ahead and discard a card. We're fine with that. Fight rigging, definitely a problem. Can't do anything about it though, unfortunately. Really hoping that the Settle the Wreckage does it for us here. Or that the Deluge can hit us a card that we want to hit. Looks like our opponent was pretty quick on that too, so they may end up just having like another Titan Industry. I mean, these are just more Magic cards that you're just going to see. Turn Timber Symbiosis. They actually... Oh, they do have the Goose so they can pay for it. And we don't really have any other counter spells, huh? Yep, gonna have to let that resolve. And... Yep, gonna go to combat. They're gonna get to do this. Trying to see if we really have answers in the deck. I guess just Opus. Really just trying to hit this Opus. We can Opus at end step, and then Opus on our turn with the Gearhulk is pretty much all we're trying to do. Gonna go ahead and make their flyer bigger. They do just have another Titan, probably destroying one of our Gearhulks here. And making another 4/4. I think we'll just Deluge in response. Kind of a bit tough for us, obviously, but at the end of the day, I mean, right now this is the best thing that we have. And we actually hit both of the cards that we needed to hit here. So let's see. 3, 4, 5, 6. Doesn't look like we have all the mana, though. Yep, gonna have to let that resolve. Still have to Settle the Wreckage. Okay, they're gonna put a shield counter there. That's fine. Not really too worried about this. They can go to attacks. If it's just those cards, I'm just gonna settle them. We still have another Settle in the graveyard if we need to, if it comes down to that. And just exile their cards here. And they have a Love Struck Beast. Wow, okay. That was amazing. So... let's put this Opus into the graveyard. Put this Opus into the graveyard. Let's start bouncing all their cards back. And making copies of Gearhulks. Turn target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Yep. So let's go ahead and bounce this card. Copy a Gearhulk. Target me. Play this. Come in for damage. And we'll go ahead and wrap up the game. We took down game 1. Alright, that was ridiculously grindy, but we got through it. We hit the cards that we needed to hit at the right time. We just really needed to get the Opus into the graveyard to be able to double Opus with the Epiphany all in one turn. I was really hoping for just huge game there, and we got it. So we have to hold them off to stop that from happening. We need all of our board wipes, all of our removal spells. Dream Trawler is kind of tough because it doesn't necessarily end the game against them. Veto is also kind of like a weird card because it counters some of their main cards that they're trying to play, but it also doesn't counter their creatures, so we could end up in a weird spot where it's not gonna win us the game. Maybe we don't need the Wandering Emperor. I think that's actually incorrect. Let's cut a Deluge. These make disappears were somewhat so-so. You know what? Mending is actually kind of not. Maybe Mending isn't the card that we want here. Do we want the Marches? March does get rid of a lot of different cards in their deck. I'm actually kind of regretting getting rid of the other Doomscar now. For the Marches that we put in the sideboard here in between games. Did we just want a Dovin's Veto? Or do we keep the Make Disappear? Make Disappear does get... Counterspells get worse overall on the draw. I really want to keep our top end here because this is actually how we're going to win the game. I just don't think that we want the Trawler. And then getting rid of some of our early game is also just kind of awful. Maybe we keep both Faithful Mendings. This is tough. Let's bring in the Dovin's Vetoes. It's not like the craziest card, but it could end up doing something. We'll see. See if we can take this game down. That was definitely very tough first game. And I'm actually going to keep this hand. We have everything that we want. We have some filtering, some removal, and a counterspell. Really just hoping to draw some mana. And we actually do. As weird as it is, I think we're just going to play this to make sure that we don't miss any untapped lands. We're going to grab an island here and pass a turn back. Now we can still Faithful Mending if we need to with this pathway, or potentially even Faithful Absence their creature that they're going to cast now, because I believe that they're just going to go for the Fight Rigging. So I think that we have to weigh our options here on what's actually better. We can't hold up for this because they're on the play, so we have no choice but to kill this so that way they don't go off super quickly on us. Even if they get the Fight Rigging, we can actually absorb the card that they cast for free. Opponent is going to cast this Fight Rigging. It's okay. We're going to hold up this Absorb in case they do end up casting that card. They were pretty quick about it. We're going to take the damage here. Wow, Dovin's Veto, actually pretty decent. We're going to pass it back, though. So let's see. They could just end up playing like a big dumb threat. Ooh, Thoughtseize. I think we'll just veto it so they don't get to see our hand. They have 2 cards left. If they hit their card, then we're definitely in some trouble, but they're actually cracking their clues, so we're okay now. We're probably just going to take 2 damage off of this Gilded Goose. We really need to draw some lands for these Gearhulks. Magma Opus is actually just a phenomenal draw here. I don't think that we can pay the life for this. We're just going to pass a turn back and potentially absorb whatever they try to cast here, and then Opus into this Gearhulk. Opponent has Fight Rigging and... Well, they're going to pump up the Goose is the problem. By 2, and that's 4, so that's actually a decent clock. What do we want to do? Do we want to let this resolve? Sure. I think it's okay. I think that we want to counter the cards that get these off. They're getting closer to this, which is scary, but I'm also hoping to just Gearhulk them out of the game the next turn. So, gonna take some damage here. Less than 12 minutes left on our clock. We have one timer left. This is all fine. They're pumping up their creatures. We could also Faithful Mending. Like, that's an option. It gains us life, but at the end of the day, I'd rather get to our 6 mana. I just feel like that's a lot more relevant. We still have the Absorb if things get bad. Alright, we just have Mono Gearhulks, though, so obviously that's scary. We're just going to get beat down for now. Let's just pass a turn back. Going to Absorb, and then hope to draw land for this Gearhulk. We might even Faithful Mending. I don't know if Mending is better to do first here. They are going to pump up their creatures, which is unfortunate. Since they didn't cast anything, it may be best to Mending. Alright, we're going to take 7, go down to 5. Oh, wow. They're actually playing around Cellular Wreckage, so it ends up working in our favor here. They have a Henge. That's going to get absorbed. Definitely not resolving. Alright, rewind. Still not going to do it. Say go. Let's see if they cast something. We'll just rewind the card. And then Faithful Mending. Ooh, maybe Mending is better. Yeah, let's do this. Well, they have this too, huh? Yep. Just gonna counter it. We get to untap all of our lands. May as well do it. No reason not to. Untap all of our lands. They are going to create that. Let's redraw. Potentially into 2 good cards that we need. Let's discard this and the rewind. Are we dead this turn? We might be dead right now. 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're going to go down to 2. This is getting really sketchy here. 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep. Well, I'm going to have to take it. We're going to discard one of our opuses. I guess we actually kind of get wrecked a little bit by that, huh? Do we still have a settle? No settle. Okay, gonna be a bit harder here, but we still have a chance. Hoping to draw a settle? We're at 2. We drew a land. Could have Mendinged. Maybe Mending was the right play at the end step just to dig deeper into our deck and gain some more life. Now if we Mending, it's not really that great. We're just really hoping to hit Settle the Wreckage, but even if we did, we don't have the mana. Yeah. I just drew a lot of lands there at the end, so it's not going to be the way that we win that game. I think that we're okay, though. I don't think that we need to make any changes. There's a chance for the March to be able to exile one of their smaller creatures, but I really don't think that that's necessary. We kind of just got unlucky. We drew like 4 or 5 extra lands than what we needed at the end of the game. If we draw any of like our, 6 to 7 6-drops that we have in the deck, we're probably solid there because we're able to just control the game a little bit better. This hand's great. We'll definitely keep it. Play our Howler Font into play tap first. I think our opponent's still deciding whether or not they want to keep their hand. Opponent is going to mulligan here. Taking a second mulligan. So opponent is going to start the game with 5 cards. We do have quite a bit of answers in our hand, so in all honesty, we're really, really hoping to hit this Gearhulk on 6 and kind of just run away with the game with our powerful spells. Especially considering that our opponent's on the back foot and we have 2 answers right now for the things that they end up playing. And we'll go ahead and play this Howler Fountain tapped. Pass the turn back to them. And they're going to go get this Gilded Goose down. And we have a Dovin's Veto. There is a world where We Faithful Absence the Goose, but I think I'd rather kill the Enabler again. And it actually looks like they have nothing. So I think we will go for the Faithful Mending here, just to be able to get some cards and do some things. Go to discard. Do we want to discard those? Yeah, I think that's fine. Those are the cards we came here to discard. So even though the Opus gets us a land, I think that's okay. And we drew our 4th land, which is nice. So we're still hoping to potentially, control the game and then win with one of our game-ending spells here. And they have a Fight Rigging. We have a Dovin's Veto for that. And they just have a Goose that's not attacking. We have an Absorb as well. And we'll go ahead and pass the turn back to our opponent. Really hoping to hit some lands. Might end up just using this Faithful Mending to get rid of the Settle the Wreckage and the Faithful Absence, depending on what they end up doing. Looks like they're not doing anything, so let's go ahead and try to dig deeper into our deck to hit our land drops here. We hit another Mending, so we'll get rid of that. And this, let's get rid of the Settle the Wreckage. Might not be correct, but we'll be able to hold up Absorb and Faithful Absence, and that Deluge is actually just icing, considering that we're going to be able to potentially hit our 6th land drop if our opponent ends up just continually doing this right now. And they got some food, so they're going to gain quite a bit of life, but we're really hoping to kind of just hit our big bombs by the time they try to get their game plan going. 3 cards left from our opponent here. And they're going to go ahead and activate that Hive. We're 100% okay with that. We'll just Faithful Absence it, give them a clue. I actually think that we can Faithful Mending, considering that we do have this Deluge. I just want to make sure that we hit our land drops here. And let's go get rid of both of these. We could actually keep the Rewind. No, let's get rid of these. I'd rather have both of those in the graveyard, so we can Gearhulk back the Rewind if we need to untap our mana to cast the Absorb. And we're going to go ahead and could exile all creatures and everything in play, but I think I'll just wait. We're not in any rush right now. We're just going to Opus here. And they are going to crack their clue. We're still okay with that. And they're going to go ahead and play a land. Land Wolf, not a threatening card at all by any means. Opponent's going to pass back to us. We'll cast this Gearhulk. Flashing back the Magma Opus, killing their creatures, tapping their lands. Let's go ahead, target their creatures, target them. Target both of their lands. They're probably just going to crack a clue. Whoops. Want to kill the Goose. And opponent actually isn't even responding. We have a Sublime Epiphany to close out the game here. Make sure that we just end up really on the winning side here. Going to go ahead and hit them down to 10 life, and we'll pass the turn back with the Sublime Epiphany to essentially end the game when it goes on the stack. Opponent does have 4 cards left. They do have some clues, so... Or, excuse me, they do have some food tokens, so they can gain some life. Going to pay 2 here. We're going to go ahead and bounce one of their food, copy the Gearhulk, draw a card, and then do it all over again. And we were able to take down that match. That was huge. Really long match, but at the end of the day, as long as you play tightly and try to make the least amount of mistakes that you can, you know, someone like me who's kind of playing this deck on the first time on the ladder, pretty much, not necessarily like a control player, you can kind of see how you can sway the game in your favor. And sometimes the decisions may be a little bit more intricate, but at the end of the day, as long as you're playing your cards in the right order and having patience with how you cast your cards, then you're going to be able to seal the game and take it away. So really long match. I hope that you enjoyed that, and we'll see you for the post-game wrap. Wow, that last match was a while. Pretty grindy. That was a pretty crazy first game there. Felt pretty lucky to have pulled it out, but overall, I think that this deck is actually really strong. I think that it has game, like I said earlier in the video, against any type of mid-range strategy, anything that's a little bit slower, or maybe even against control decks where you can just play the ultimate flash, and a lot of the time some of the other control decks have to actually tap out for their Teferis or anything like that, so you're kind of able to get them, especially after the sideboard with the veto. But I think this deck definitely has a lot of game. I know that the person that made the deck, KillaDub, they got decently high on the ladder, and I know that they play a lot of flash style decks, so I think that if that's something that you enjoy, if you enjoy control, I 100% recommend this deck. I think this deck's definitely for you. I think, like, yeah, it's just such an amazing list. I know that I personally enjoy playing Gearhulks so much, especially with the Epiphany. Like, both of these is one of my favorite combos, like, of all time. I just loved playing this card when it was in Standard, and the fact that I'm able to play it in Arena, Explorer, all these formats is just a good time. So definitely check out the deck. If you haven't already, check out any of the links in the description below to the tournaments that we have every month. We have 3 a month that are free to play with cash prizes, so get in on that. We have one this Sunday. It's going to be Explorer format, June 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern. So definitely sign up for it. You can check out all my content as well down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe, hit the bell icon, leave a comment, and like the video. Hope to see you next time, and stay cheesy.